guys, welcome back to the Daily Dreamer. Thanks so much for coming and hanging out with me for a dream. I do apologize, I've not been able to get you guys some dreams out there, but it doesn't mean that they're not still happening. All right, so I'm going to take a moment and I'm going to discuss this one dream because it seems rather important that the message should be getting out there for everyone, because we all share these thoughts, and regardless of whether or not you are aware of them, I think it's important to discuss this. All right, so let's go ahead and continue on. So I wake up, come to, and when I come to, I am in this neighborhood with this one house that is always on the corner. This one house that I always come to when I am standing in front of this house or inside this house, my guard, my intuition is at a heightened sense of awareness. And so I am already on guard because I know the house and I know the neighborhood. So I go into the house because obviously there are things for me to learn in this house. And when I go into the house, the layout of course changes and I know where I'm at. I'm in a home of some people that I know in this realm who have had a fire and their entire house burnt down. It needed to be restructured, needed to be rebuilt from the ground up. So I'm in that brand new house, even before they've even moved in. So I think the house may have just gotten done. Anyways, I'm going down, I'm seeing the familiar layout of their old house, how they rebuilt it to try to match it, but it is a bit off. There is more of a compartmentalized rooms, if you will. So it already seems a bit off. The paint is so white that it almost blurs my vision. So I'm a bit disoriented. When I go down the halls and I look into the empty rooms, I notice that I know where I'm at. I'm at their house, their new house, before they have even moved in. So I'm walking through their house literally. I come to the living room, and the living room is what has changed. It is now an added wall. In other words, it's definitely by itself. So you have to actually go into this room. Going into this room, I notice that the paint is so incredibly white that it distorts and makes me disoriented. So I turn back around and I realize that I need to get out of this house because it's making me woozy. So I'm instantly manifested outside that house. Now, when I come out of that house, it is nighttime, and it's nighttime. It's very cold, and it is snowing. And I look up, and when I look up, I see because I'm out of the house, to the left, there is a hill, a very steep hill. There is a van that is attempting in this snowstorm to go up this very steep hill. I knew he was not going to succeed, but it wasn't because of the hill. There were monster trucks up at the very top that came crashing down on him. He was completely obliterated. He was gone. The van was just no more. And I was like, okay, well then we're just going to go ahead and walk around the block, which I knew I didn't really want to go around this block of this house because I've already been down this block. I know that it's not a place that I really want to be, but I have to get out of that situation. So as I walk around the block, there is an older man that comes out of his house, and I hear him say something. Well, I realize that as he says whatever he says, I go to regroup and I go try to walk up that steep hill. It seems like that's the only way that I can get out of this situation. When I start to walk up the hill, there are like vicious guard dogs now that are just as huge as the monstrous trucks. They are now just barking incessantly at me. So I thought, okay, then I'm not going to go up that way. I make my way back down the hill and I go back around the block. Now I notice the old man is now turning back around to follow me. And he follows me and he says to me, don't pay attention to the dogs. They're not going to bite. Come on inside though, and I'll take care of you. Well, originally, because it was so cold and I didn't know how to get out of that situation, for just a moment, I thought, maybe he means well. I'll go ahead and follow him. But then my gut kicked in and said, absolutely not. Do not trust this person. And so I chose not to. So I continued on instead of going with him. He was still doing this as though, come, I'll take care of you. When I chose to ignore him, he just kind of stayed there and lingered in the background, but he didn't come towards me anymore. I moved forward. I kept trying to take my phone and kept trying to wipe the wet, the cold, the snow off, trying to call my Uber ride, right? But I could never get a hold of them because my hands were too frozen, so I could never dial. So at that point, then I said, well, this has got to stop. I need to get out of this situation. And so what happened? I was whisked back to consciousness. So what a crazy dream, right? So let's go find out what that dream was about. Okay, so that was a crazy dream. I'm going to tell you that right now. It was so much of a crazy dream that when I told my husband, he was like, well, you've got to do a dreamer on that one, So I'm doing this because it needs to be stated. We have all been warned, we have been told, we've been cautioned for a millennia that humanity is under a psychic attack from a group of energetic beings that feed off of our thoughts, okay? These thoughts that they feed off, this loosh, they call it. It is negative emotions. It is judgment, separation, anxiety, anger, fear. It is their food, if you will. They're taking from our negative emotional energy and they siphon it for themselves, okay? They keep us in a state that is just generally in fear, a lower vibration, if you will. And in searching for what that force really is behind the construction of it all, one is definitely bound to investigate, who's doing it. I mean, it's just a natural curiosity of us. Maybe it's the puppet masters, maybe it's handlers, maybe it's these mind control perpetrators. They manipulate all of mankind. Some people call these entities hyperdimensional entities. They call them mud shadows. In the book that I'm reading currently right now, they discuss them as mud shadows or cosmic perpetrators, they call it. They can also be known as phantom selves, negative shadows, dark shadow, dark self, if you will. The list goes on and on and on. They've been recognized, they have been discussed, they have been warned about for literally millennia throughout history of humanity. Naturally, there are people who are going to scoff at all of that. And they're just, oh, no, they're just fictitious inventions of our human mind. Well, so be it. But when it comes down to it, normally they're the ones that are the same people that are stuck in their own karmic cycles. Or they're the ones that can't move forward because it's always someone else's fault. They're the ones that refuse to look in the mirror of themselves. When in actuality, if they looked in the mirror and see their dark shadow, they would probably be less likely to be the one criticizing you for seeing these or feeling these entities, grabbing your soul. However, we know that in fact there have been many cultures, many religions, many spiritualities that have discussed the nature of these creatures. They use different terms, but essentially they describe the same thing. And so it does give some sort of merit to the fact that these creatures exist. We have to take seriously the idea of the hidden ruler, if you will, of this world, because they are invisible, or at least these hidden rulers operate from different frequencies beyond our normal perception. I mean, after all, no one knows where our thoughts actually originate. If there were a force that could control which thoughts are beamed into the mind, then every single person would be vulnerable to a psychic attack. These mud shadows, if you will, dark selves, are said to be able to infiltrate our minds, make their voice sound like yours, and they entice you to do their bidding. And it's all aimed at generating fear, which is their food. Are they evil spirits that possess people? Are they masters of trickery who continuously try to keep us in fear and out of the center of our power, which is our heart? These same forces, they're known to every religion, even in Christianity. They call them demons. There's a scripture, Ephesians 6:12, I believe. The creatures, they actually are called rulers or authorities. Quote, for our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers that be of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms, right? And they call it Satan, right? Some call them just dark shadows. Whatever you want to call it, it's all the same thing. It grasps our mind. It keeps us in this loop. The gospel, of course, contains many, many stories of Jesus casting out evil spirits. What kind of evil spirits do you think he's casting out? The tradition continues on to the current day. That's why we have exorcisms, right? In some teachings, they refer to the negative being as Satan. This, again, of course, is noteworthy because, it highlights the hyperdimensional entity that is outside the normal range of normal human perception. But, of course, it is not out of the perceptions of other creatures, such as dogs or cats. They can sense them. It's just out of the human range. Although when a person, through his own will or intention or expansion through psychedelics, they widen their perception range, are able to see these dark shadows, if you will. Hyperdimensional entities have been observed, they've been warned about, they've been even fought throughout the history of humanity by shamans, mystics, and prophets. They have all seen them. So just what are these hyperdimensional entities and how do they affect you? I'm reading a book right now by Carlos Castaneda, and he discusses the lessons from Don Juan. In it, he describes that these forces, these mud shadows, come as cosmic perpetrators. And he describes them as not a simple perpetrator by any means. They're very smart. They're very organized. They follow a methodical system to render us useless. How? Because they instill fear. They instill doubt. They plague us with negative emotions. Because that is their food. That is how they keep us sedated. They keep us in line from moving towards the amazing genius engineers that we are meant to be. They just keep us sedated. They play into doubts and worries and anxieties. They keep us lethargic enough that it gives them the power that they need. It is a virus of the mind, and they play very well in that realm. And unless you are aware, you are a victim to that realm. This is why you have to be stronger and work through the negative you. You have to sit with yourself. You have to see, you have to experience it on a daily, whether inside yourself or in the outside world. Because if you know here, then you know how these demons operate, and you're able to move forward with it. You're able to walk with them and not allow them to overtake you, which they do each and every single day. The cosmic perpetrator uses man as food, but in order to get that food, he has to whip man into a very negative frenzy, much as farmers do when they fatten their chickens or their calves before they kill them. Don Juan specifically explains that every human has a glowing code of awareness upon which the predator feeds. It milks man by provoking emotional drama as to generate flashes of awareness that it will then eat. Most people live their lives in this hypnotic trance or waking sleep, if you call it. There's a Russian mystic, his name was, and I can't pronounce it, Gurdjieff, not sure, but he told of a story, and it was of an evil magician. He lived deep in the mountains and in the forest, and he had thousands of sheep. But the problem is that the sheep were afraid of the magician, because each and every day, the sheep were seeing that he was killing them. One for breakfast, one for his lunch. And so what happened? Well, they ran away. They ran away from the magician's ranch. And it was a very difficult job for him to actually keep them together. So what did he do? He did what a magician was supposed to do. He used his magic. He hypnotized all the sheep and suggested to them, this is great, first, that they were immortal and that no harm was being done to any of them, even when they were being skinned. That, on the contrary, it would be very good for them to be skinned, even pleasant. Then what he did was he suggested that the magician was a great master who loved his flock so much that he would be willing to do anything for them. And then, third, he placed and suggested to them that if anything was going to happen to them, it wasn't going to happen just then. No, they didn't need to worry about it because it wasn't going to happen then. He then went and told different sheep different stories. You're a man. You need not be afraid. It's only the sheep that are going to be killed and eaten, not you, though. You're a man just like I am. Some of the other sheep were told, you're a lion, and only sheep are afraid. You're a lion. Don't listen to them. You would prefer to die than to run away because, well, you don't belong with these sheep. So when they are killed, it's not your problem. They are meant to be killed, but not you. You are my most loved of my friends in this forest. In this way, what he did was he told every sheep different stories. And from the second day, the sheep stopped running away from the house because they still saw other sheep being killed and butchered, but it wasn't any of their concern. Because why? Because somebody was a lion, because somebody was a tiger, because someone was a man, someone was a magician, and so forth and so forth and so forth. Nobody was a sheep except the one being killed. In this way, without keeping servants, he managed thousands of sheep. They would go into the forest for their food, their water. They would come back home, always believing the same thing. It is only some sheep that'll be killed, not you. You don't belong to the sheep. You're different. You're a lion, respected, honored, a friend of the great magician. The magician's problems, though, were solved, and the sheep never ran away again. Humanity is like that flock of sheep, folks. Mankind collectively is being required to produce certain vibrations or energies for various certain cosmic purposes. From this perspective, those hyperdimensional entities, the mud shadows, the dark self, your inner shadow, are part of a single mind. And it's a mind virus which tries to trick us at every single turn. It causes us to see problems in others very quickly. You know, it's that psychological projection, when really the problems originate in ourselves. The following ways, though, that I'm going to tell you, are ways that you are able to confront and overcome the mind. Virus entities, if you will, so that you are no longer a prisoner to your own thoughts. Okay? Understand, though, that this takes time. It may even take a lifetime for you to overcome. But it's a start for you to sit down, take 5 minutes with yourself, and at least start the process so that you are no longer a victim. All right? The first thing you need to do when you sit down with yourself and you find that you have dark shadows, name it. Name that demon. Because once you take responsibility or own part of your shadow or your unconscious behavior, it automatically will lose some grip on you. Guaranteed. The next thing you want to do is you want to integrate with it. You don't want to obliterate it. You can't. Because from a spiritual and psychological perspective, overcoming the shadow, we all know that it's all about integration, not obliteration. You can't destroy the dark side because it's always going to be there, just as the good will always be. All right? The spiritual path is about healing. And it's about being able to actually take that split personality that we have and make it whole. Being fully aware that you have both sides within you. Next, you want to be the observer. You want to be the watcher. You want to develop a practice of watching the voices inside your head so that you do not identify with them. The only way they can actually ever have power over you is by tricking you into identifying into a certain mental position, if you will, a lower vibe. And that is in the form of fear, anxiety, worry, negative thoughts, emotions, anger, hate, name it. Anything that is in contrast to love. The next thing you got to do, and I keep telling you this, each and every dreamer, take 5 minutes, do your inner work. The battle is within, right here. Focus on what is inside you. It's hard to save the world and effectively help others if you are haunted by your own past wounds that you haven't even healed. You want to worry about your own shadow, not others. We all know that it's easier for everyone else to see shadows in other people's selves, but can you see it within you? That's where you start healing, folks. Revoke any agreement, any contract with any negative hyperdimensional entity ever. Say it out loud. With power, with certainty, with authority. You state that you are canceling and you are revoking that any agreements with any entities of any negative shadows, okay, that you believe have a hold over you, it is no more. Then, of course, you definitely want to sharpen your intuition and your discernment. The more that you are able to connect with your intuition, your gut, your heart, and not your reason, your mind, the more that you know, the more that you will understand and be able to take it on, okay? Because you will know yourself, right? Your intuition will help you discern which voice is real and which voice is tricking you. That's why it's always important. That's why they say follow your gut instinct. It will never steer you wrong, okay? It will also help you discern truth from falsehood as a reader and a researcher. The truth is never going to just be handed to you on a golden platter, folks. You have to struggle for it. You have to sweat for it. You got to know yourself. You got to follow your heart and your gut instinct. Find the place of invulnerability and the power inside you, because the only way to defeat this is to find that place inside yourself which is invulnerable to it. All right? That's the only place you're going to find it to be able to overcome it. You got to learn to laugh at the voice of hopelessness. You have to learn to laugh at despair, temptation, anger, rage, reactions. Laugh at them. Don't let it get you caught up. Good luck in your battles, guys. We are all battling the inner demons. And as Plato said, be kind, for everyone is fighting this battle. Till next stream, guys, thanks so very much and many blessings to you.